Program does not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Reality Radio 101, its advertisers and sponsors, or its listening audience. Listener discretion is advised. Good afternoon and welcome to the Liquid Green Health Show with your hosts, Fred and Janet Cox, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board, send us an email. Our email address is liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, right to your hosts of the Liquid Green Health Show, Fred and Janet Cox.
And good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of our listeners and viewers across Canada, the United States, and around the globe. We are the Coxes. And as usual, you are in for an hour, one full hour of edutainment designed for information purposes only. Folks, we love your comments. We've been getting a lot of comments, and please continue to send those comments to Liquid Green Health Show. That's the Liquid Green Health Show at gmail.com. Let us know where you are listening from. And of course, we will respond when necessary. So, you have anything to say today?
Well,
it's Sunday. It's Sunday. The liquor stores are closed.
Yes, but
right.
As you know,
I can see tears in your eyes because the liquor stores are closed.
No, but I was able to stock up on my favorite just about 2 or so hours, just a few hours before they actually close.
And you brought a drink up. You brought a drink into the studio
no, I did
here.
Not. I wanted.
What is that you're drinking?
Not.
What is that you're drinking? And you didn't bring one for me. What did it? See? See what I mean? Huh?
Remember, at least it's not pee. It's not pee, folks.
Well, it's another good Sunday afternoon, and we've had a hectic week, right? Lots of entertainment. We went to a lot of places.
We were at a conference, and we're going to just mention that very briefly. Let's introduce our guest early, because she was also at that conference, and I'd like to just talk about it a little.
Okay, well, let's talk about what we're going to be talking about today.
Sure.
Today, we're focusing, our conversation is going to be surrounded around grief and the loss and the different coping strategies, you know, that is employed when someone or a group of people are experiencing a grief situation. And so this episode, that's what we're going to be focusing on. Our guest today is...
Even though it's the summer, and when people think of grief, we're hoping folks won't think, why this depressing subject during the
summer months. Right.
The thing about grief, it has no time and it has no space,
and it also affects your health.
It's health, definitely. It's one of the things that it's so misunderstood and it's so unique to everybody. So we're going to get into the details. And do you want to go ahead and introduce Dr. Barbara?
Our guest today is Dr. Barbara Stewart. She is a registered clinical counselor, certified master transformational life coach trainer, and ordained pastor with over 20 years of experience in ministry. She is a nurse for over 25 years and is an international chaplain and registered marriage counselor.
Marriage officer.
Marriage officer. Okay, sorry, marriage officer. She is also the founder and CEO of BNJ Holistic Counseling and Wellness Center, Inc., and Gift of Life Global Impact Foundation, Inc., a non-profit organization which provides medical supplies globally to those in need. Dr. Stewart is an active community leader and also serves on the global team of the African Union's 6th region. She is passionate about helping vulnerable individuals, particularly children and the elderly.
Yes.
Dr. Barbara Stewart, welcome to the Liquid Green Health Show.
And And that was the official title. That was your official bio. Now, your unofficial bio is Dr. Barbara is my friend Barbara. And for the show, I'm going to be calling you Barbara. All right. And if that's okay. And you are, as we always say, you're my sister from another mother. And we have gone to Africa together. We have been to Jamaica together. And I have forgotten how many years I've known you. And even with the organization Gift of Life, your baby, your brainchild, but there's a team of us that work that together.
You've given things away together.
Yes.
Lots of stuff.
Lecture and we work it. And this week we were at the post-COVID conference. And you were one of the speakers, and your topic was on grief and loss. What did you think about that conference?
Thank you. First of all, let me thank you both. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Janet. It's a good thing that you are not driving because you can't drink and drive. So
thanks for bringing it to speaking the truth, right?
Oh, dear.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while since I should have been on this program, but with time and what we do with the African Union, it's really prevent sometimes you getting around to do what you need to do. But I'm so honored to be here, and I love the show. I've learned so much from this show because when you started, the interesting people that you bring in and the information that is being shared on it from time to time is really, really effective and transforming, I would say. Pertaining to the conference that we were at, the post-COVID conference, it was amazing. Lots of information, a lot on the economic aspect, the loss of the economic aspect of it. But one thing I realized, nobody touched on the grief aspect other than myself, which I find a little bit, I would say, disturbing for me because grief is so it's so big because with mental health and also with the whole COVID situation, it exacerbated the whole aspect of grief in such a way. And grief is a subject that people are afraid to talk about. People are afraid to discuss. It's on the mind, yet still it's so pronounced amongst us. So that's what I would say for that. But well-attended conference. We had delegates from all over the world that attended it, and it was timely and needed. And the fact that it's not just a one-time thing, it will be also dealt with next year. My question, which we're part of the whole process, as you know, is how the implementation aspect is going to come because COVID, as we think it has passed, but the effect is still very much evident amongst us. It's a new lifestyle. So that's what I want to say.
I totally 100% agree with you. And I just wanted to give a shout out again to the CEO, the organizer. Just a couple of names I want to throw out: Ronald and Miriam, and a new friend, Dr. Aman. I'll call
Jamila.
Dr. Jamila, the panelists, the folks, it was really, really, really great. The food, for the first time, we had Somalian food. And talk about healthy
very,
food.
very good. Very good.
That leg of lamb.
Yep. Very good.
Yes.
Well, tasty.
Enjoyed it. The food was good. Yeah.
Amazing. So
on both days.
Both days, yes. And the dance, I mean, you know,
it was nice to see the cultural, the cultural representation and the entertainment. Their form of entertainment is totally different from what we are accustomed to. So it was really nice.
So I look at it as a health conference, and that's why we were so happy to be a part of it. So anyway, thank you again for being here. Now, grief. I think it's one of those natural emotions that everybody goes through something, some form of grief in their
At
lives.
some point
That's
in
the
time.
one thing
Yeah.
you can't get over,
Yeah.
right? What's your biggest grief, Frederick?
I think for me, it would have to be when my mother died.
Okay.
Even though I didn't exhibit it, overtly, it was internal, and I felt it.
Okay. It wasn't the time when I threatened to divorce you, no?
No, I could
Okay.
walk through that. I could walk through that, man.
But you think it's not real, right?
Nah, it's not real. Nothing to worry about.
So
But that for me was the biggest.
it's the biggest,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't even know what mine is yet, but let's talk about grief in general. How would you like to start? What can you tell us, our audience, about why we all go through the process? It is a process, and we go through it differently. But you're a therapist, and what do you have to say as introduction on the subject? Where would you start?
So first of all, what is grief?
Exactly.
Understanding what is grief, and we say grief is the response to loss, particularly to the loss of someone or something, some living thing that has died, to which a bond or a relationship has been established, and or an affection. But then again, grief is not, before, in the past, when one talk about grief, you just associate it to death of someone, death of an individual. But grief is far bigger than that. And the more, when I embark on this journey and understand clearly what grief is, I was like blown away, because I'm like, people need to be educated, people need to understand, people need to be helped to embrace this.
Yeah.
Grief is a natural response to loss. It is the emotional suffering you feel when something or someone you love is taken away from you. One may experience all kinds of difficult and unexpected emotions. So grief is also, loss of friends or friendship, loss of health, loss of job, loss of a loved one, loss of pet, divorce, loss of financial stability, transiting from one country to the other.
Great. Yes, that's right. And do you think one is more, I always wonder how people deal so differently with grief. Because for some people, they're able to get over it relatively quickly. And for some people, there just seems to be, it's chronic. And no matter how hard they try, they can't seem to get over whatever the loss was, whatever that it was that they had trouble with.
That's
Why is
separation.
that?
So first of all, grief is not something you get over.
Correct.
And that's the notion that people use to in trying to help others. Oh, the person would have loved you to move on with their life, with your life. So get over it. And
Right.
and that kind of thing. It's not something you get over, because the person is dead, or you've lost that thing. And the next thing is, grief is as unique to an individual as your fingerprint to you.
Correct. And
so each individual would grieve differently, and we become judgmental if we do not see the person grieve according to our expectation.
correct.
Of what we claim as grieving.
And you know what? That is so true. Because right now I have a very dear friend. I won't call names. And some people have gone through so much. She had the death of a son when he was young, like 21. She had personally cancer, breast cancer, which she survived. And now she's dealing with the illness of a spouse. And I look at that situation, and for me, that person is in a state, she says she's in a state of peace. And there's no reason for me not to believe it. But knowing what she was before, because we've been friends for years, knowing what it was before, I am feeling that what could I do to help her to get out of that situation? But are there situations like that where we don't need to do anything and just leave people as long as they're not hurting themselves? And, do we just leave people to get on with their lives the way they know how to deal with it?
Thank you for that question. That's very, very, very vital, very interesting question, because one, most people do not, or a lot of people do not know how to witness another person's grief.
Mm-hmm.
And we may think that, okay, they want us to leave them alone, but they want you to witness their grief. You also may think they want you to fix them, but they're not broken, so you can't fix them. We also will say things like I said, go meet people and go out and enjoy your life. Your son would want you to enjoy your life. Oh, even though you had breast cancer, it could have been worse. And we say these things and with a good heart.
Yes.
We mean well, but it's the wrong thing we're saying.
Why would it be the wrong thing when in your mind, the person that's trying to console them, you think you're doing something right?
So that's the thing, because we're not educated on how to witness grief, then we say things, and because that's the norm. Okay. That's what you'd always hear people say. So you think that's the right thing to say. And honestly, with all genuinity, you mean well. But because of the person who is receiving it, to them, it's like having a wound and you put something and irritate that wound. So sometimes it's to say nothing at all, just to be there, just to be present. And sometimes it's just to always be attentive to listen. Let them talk. And what I want to say also, even though I am a grief educator and a counselor, and you said expert in the area of grief, but at the same time, the person who is grieving is their own expert in grief. I have to let them tell me how they want me to work with them or witness their grief.
But then why do they need you if they're able to do that on their own?
No, they can't do it. They're not able to do it on their own, but you got to know where they are and understand how they want to go through it.
Okay.
It's not that they know how to do it, but you got to listen to them and help them.
Okay.
So in other words, the person is in a state of emotional weakness. So you now would have to be the person that's stepping in to guide them along.
The counselor.
The counselor.
But yes. That's not
or not just the counselor,
but everybody need a counselor, because some people can get over it very quickly.
We don't get over it. They integrate it. They integrate it. They integrate it because you can't get over it. So what happened when in situation, for example, the loss of a loved one? What happened is your life is not the same anymore. It's a new life that you take on. Correct. Because that person is not there. So the new life you take on, you integrate the loss in that new life and bring it into that new place where you are in dealing with it.
That is fantastic, because we've done, as usual, what we like to do is look at some of the research ourselves. And for the most part, that is what folks say. Now, there was what's her name? Elizabeth.
Sorry, Janet, if I may say something. What you described about your friend.
Yes.
The different losses that she has experienced. That's what we call compound grief.
Right. Several things to deal with.
Compound grief. And at this stage, one of the challenge is, what does she grieve? because and especially it depends, and if they're close behind each other. She may not get the time to grieve her son, and during the process of grieving her son, she was diagnosed with cancer. And how does she really choose what to grieve? And how does she really grieve? So you see, what happens there, and maybe her spirituality is what helped her to say she's okay, but not necessarily that means that she's okay.
That is my point.
Yeah, because
Do people really know they're okay? One lady I was listening to, she said she was just in such a state of depression that she had difficulty breaking out of. And she had two different situations. It was the loss of a sister in an accident, and then the loss of a spouse after she was married for a few years. So two big ones, family, close family, and a spouse. And her depression was so bad that she said she really thanked a friend who literally came to her house, picked her up, took her out into the sunshine and said, listen, life goes on. And she was actually thankful for that intervention. So again, that won't work for everybody because as you said, it's so different.
No.
And it's so unique.
And there are people who literally at certain stage of because what brings one into depression, it could be psychological, it could be shock.
Yeah.
Of a trauma. We call it trauma. It could be trauma that not being attended to that brought her into that stage of depression. And it depends on how long, because grief is something that is natural.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to be healed or transit into a phase of acceptance, you have to grieve. Because if you don't, you're stuck in that place.
Mm-hmm.
And you literally remain there. And it can escalate and it can be compounded until before you realize you're so badly affected.
Yeah.
So
that you lose your true identity.
How long does this process really takes? If someone, I mean, if it doesn't end, right? You integrate it into your life, right? At what stage can you say, okay, I am over that?
Remember, you're not over it. She's corrected us several times.
Well, I mean,
Fred,
so
I understand what you're saying, but as long as the person is dead, you will grieve. Yes. But you can grieve at some part of that journey. You're beginning to grieve that person with meaning, with love. Because it's what happened is missing the person, dwelling on, you may be looking at all the areas of guilt. Mm-hmm. What I would have, what I should have, could have, didn't do, even though you've done your best. A lot of time, guilt is one of the factors. Especially in cases of suicide, where people think, and I must say, suicidal, death by suicide is one of the least witnessed area of grieving. People tend to isolate themselves from the griever. Why? I don't know. They're afraid. So a lot of times people don't even attend the funeral.
Yeah, right.
And then people, if it's teenagers, like kids in school, parents tell their kids not to associate. Parents don't literally cut themselves off.
You know, Barbara,
if it's spousal, that like you and Fred, and say, my husband, we would go out together, my husband died, then all of a sudden you feel that it's not a good thing for me to go out with you because it's going to affect you, but I never ask you, that kind of thing. We just assume, and then we isolate ourselves. And that is so painful for the griever.
Now there are the classic. There's the classics methods that I think it was way back. I'm not sure if the 60s. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Yes.
He came up with the 5. These are, it's old fashioned now. Nobody talks about, nobody agrees anymore that the processes, the 5 levels, the 5 aspects of grieving that she mentioned. Could you just go over those briefly, starting with denial?
Oh, even with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she herself has established that it's not a linear process.
Correct. Right.
So and it's and also my mentor and David Kessler, who was mentored by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, wrote the 6th stage of it, which is finding meaning.
Okay.
So it's not 5 stage anymore, it's 6 stage.
So
and you have denial, and denial is when the person is at that place where they cannot accept that this is happening.
Right, they disbelieve. No,
they disbelieve. No. That can't happen.
That's the first reaction a lot of
That's the first reaction. Not necessarily it's the first reaction. Sometimes a person can go into acceptance in the first reaction.
Really?
And then end up go into denial at some point.
Okay.
Because as you say, it's not linear.
But it's not linear. It's so I can accept that my husband died or my son died at this point, and it seemed like everything is okay. I accept it. It's no longer gonna be with me anymore. But after the funeral, after you realize that he's not coming home, and it's things, you can't get rid of the things in the house. You can't separate yourself from the thoughts and the playbacks of what happened, whether it was true illness, whether it was death by suicide, whether it was an accident. It keeps replaying itself. And then you end up in a place where you say, no, it didn't happen. You become angry.
That's what she says is the next step. But again, we're not following that in terms of natural progression.
No, you're not. But you do become, people, they can become angry. Like I said, it can be acceptance first, then you go in denial, or you go in anger.
Yeah. And then
denial. Then you start bargaining.
Yes. Yes.
Through a process of bargaining and saying, if this, or if that didn't happen, or if this was happening, or whatever, or why this happened, all that kind of thing. You start going to the stage of bargaining. And with all that, you may end up in depression, like what you say happened to this person.
And then that's where the guilt comes in, because everybody, like, no matter what you see, what there, I think most people absolutely go through that bargaining. If I had been there, if we weren't driving, if it wasn't raining, they think of so many what if.
Yes.
They go through all the stages
at different times, different
yes, at different times, and sometimes they don't go to the all 5 stages, but they go through most of it, or may go through a few of it, kind of thing.
But that
and at the end of the day is when you begin, like for example, the Floyd death, George Floyd's death. And people were finding meaning in it through Black Lives Matters, and the family, what they do is finding meaning to make sure this doesn't happen to someone else again. Or say, for example, like Janet, like mom was such a fun, loving person, and now you're looking at establishing a foundation in her name. You find meaning to help others with dementia.
So that is considered a form of grieving, like starting a foundation in the person's name.
It's finding meaning in the process of grief.
Oh, okay, good.
Now, one of the things that I came across, and I found this really interesting, This was Uberman. There is a podcast that I listen to religiously. He's a neurophysicist, and he talked about space, time, and closeness. And what he was saying is that from his research, what happens, it depends really on how close you were to the person, right? And the in how quickly you could get to, for example, he said, in your own life, think of somebody who you can reach in just minutes. Like, these are the most important people in your lives then. The ones that if you pick up the phone and you need them, they're there, right? That is different from somebody who, it might have been a friend from school who you love, you care about, but you haven't seen them in 5 years, right? And so the closeness and the space and time really makes a difference, and it affects the way people grieve. Any comments on that?
It certainly does, and something that you say, that I won't even take it out of the scope of family, to show you the uniqueness in individual grieving, because you use an illustration of even a family versus a friend, that you know over the years. But let's take it within the family sector. Say there are five siblings or three siblings or how many siblings in the family, and one of the parent died, and we realize that the way that each sibling grieve is different.
Yes.
And this caused a lot of rift and animosity in families, because one may seem to be happy going. For example, let me share my own story. When my dad was in ICU for 3 months. I was there every single day, morning and evening, with my medical background and all that kind of thing. So I would go first thing in the morning before I go to work, and then after work. Now, when my dad died, the day my dad passed away, the evening I still went to church, which my family thought that was crazy because I need to be with the family. But to be honest with you, I felt that I needed to go. I think it was more dealing with my spirituality. I needed to go to maybe to feed my own spirit in a way, than being around at that time. So in families, we grieve individually, and the person who is closest, because I was close to my dad, and after the funeral, I literally was going in depression. And the thing is, what made me go into studying grief and loss, because I wrote my thesis on that, was because the person who I thought would be a spiritual guidance to me literally said to me, "What are you doing? Get over it and move on with your life," within a few months of the death of my father. And I thought that was absurd.
That's
And I,
cold.
yeah, and I thought to myself, I am not the only person that been treated that way. There are many other people
I'll
that
give
have been treated that way. So
I'll,
let me understand more on what this is all about. And this is why I went into grief and loss.
okay, and I'll give you one brief example as well with our mother. And as you
Yes,
know, she was strong. And my
yes.
sister Joan is emotional. It's she's strong, but when she got to the church, my mother looked at her and said, like she touched her and said, "Don't bother with the crying, with the loud crying." Like in Jamaica, we said with the cow bawling. Don't bother with the cow bawling today, right? And that was just so cold. But in our family, so much comes over. And we just took it as a joke and we move on. But we're, Frederick, you wanted to go to some
Yeah, Dr.
emails.
Barbara, we're gonna go to some email, and
Yes.
then when we return, I want to ask you, along the same lines with family, how can friends and family support someone who is grieving. So
yeah.
hold your answer, and we're going to go to some email, and then we'll get back to you. Okay.
Thank you.
First email. Where you want to start? Top, bottom, center?
Start with Dave.
Okay. Here's one from Dave, and Dave says, sounds like a very good topic today, Coxes. Looking forward to the show. Okay, which means that came in a bit early. That came in early. Yeah, be well. Thank you, Dave. You want to get that one?
Matt says, hey, Coxes, very important show today. The mental behavior affects all people on the planet. And we've acknowledged that nobody escapes without something in their lives. Right?
And Ken says, hello. Question for the doctor. What exactly is holistic medicine? Thank you. So you can answer that.
Okay. Well, we'll let Dr. Barbara answer that. In your opinion, what is holistic medicine?
Okay, but she's
hello? Is she there?
Hold on. Now I had muted, so that's why I was trying to unmute.
Yeah, you want to address that question? Someone is asking, what exactly is holistic medicine?
For me, holistic medicine, it would be something that deals with the totality of the human being.
Okay. Okay.
And it differs from from the medical world.
Definitely.
Focus on
the synthetic drugs.
And the drugs, and not from a point of
I would say
prevention.
I would add
spirituality. That's with the mind, the spirit, and the body. The soul, spirit, and body. Yeah.
When it comes to holistic medicine, they focus a lot on nutrition.
It's everything.
Yeah, it's nutrition. a complete assessment of the individual, and it covers every aspect of the physical.
The whole
in a natural aspect, without the side. So now, to me, it's I think, first of all, let me say that we're spiritual beings, and the spirituality of an individual is more significant than the physical. And Fred, you always say that. Yeah. So in dealing with a person on not holistic medicine, you first need to understand, the person needs to understand where they are spiritually.
Yeah.
Because whatever you're giving that person, it's the spirit and the body need to be in sync to accept it.
Okay, so we have a few more. Let's go on to the next one.
Here's one from Chris. You want to get that one?
Chris says, hi to the Coxes and Dr. Stewart. Is Dr. Stewart a PhD or a medical doctor? Do you want to answer that, Barbara?
I'm a PhD. I have a PhD in counseling and international humanitarian. Yeah.
Okay. And hope that answers your question. Here's one from Shaw, and this is written very small print.
He says,
symptoms of grief.
What are the symptoms of grief? Yeah, that's a good topic. Let's deal with that now, and we'll go back to the other emails as they come up.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Because time goes so fast. So what would you say, Barbara, are the symptoms?
Symptoms of grief is depression, anxiety, sadness, loss of appetite, sleep apnea, eventually, like lack of sleep, unable to sleep.
What about relief?
There are different ways to deal with relief. Yeah. Support, witnessing a person's grief is very vital. Family support from friends is very vital. Eating well, sleeping well. And if you get to the stage of being chronic, or you end up going in depression, seek professional help.
Okay. All right.
You're listening to the Coxes, folks, on the Liquid Green Health Show radio and podcast. And we're streaming live today on Reality Radio 101. And if you are watching us on YouTube, please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share this broadcast with your friends. You can also check out all of our previous broadcasts on Spotify and YouTube as well. And of course, You can send your comments to liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. That's liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. Our guest today is Dr. Barbara Stewart, and she is a registered clinical counselor, certified master, transformational life coach trainer. And today we are talking about grief, the various aspects of grief, how it affects individuals, and what they should do about it. Now, there was a question. I'm going to get back to the email, but there was a question I wanted to ask Dr. Barbara, and it had to do with family and friends and the support mechanism, that is employed once someone is experiencing this condition. What are some of the practical ways that friends and family can help a loved one who's dealing with loss?
Do not judge. Okay. Do not judge them. Understanding that, as we say before, and this, like I said, people don't see it that way because they don't know. Understanding that the way they're grieving is their way of dealing with the situation. So don't try to tell them this is the way they should be grieving, or that is the way that should be grieving.
Okay.
And a lot of times, even when people go into support groups too, say, I lost my mother, you lost your mother, yes, and we're in this support group session. The way I am dealing with it, I may think I need to project that on you because that's the way you should be dealing with it.
Okay.
So even into grief session, it has to be controlled that people don't end up doing things like that.
It's an individual thing.
It's an individual thing. And also, grief does not have a specific time.
That's right.
Yeah.
So don't say, okay, it's 1 year now, so you should be moving on with your life, or it's 2 years now. There are people who may be able to transit and start dealing with going on with their life in a positive way in 6 months.
Do become judgmental. Like if somebody loses a husband and in 6 months she's remarried or he is remarried. Oh my goodness. Society judges that in terms of time, right? Even though that person may be fully prepared to not move on, but to move forward then. Yeah. Because we don't say to get over it, right?
So it could be that, sorry. Yeah. It could be that that person may feel that having it depends on what was discussed between her and the husband prior to his death.
And probably how long,
it also could be whether or not the grieving process was even started before he died. So she's been doing this for how many years, looking after him, caring for him, and he has released her to do what's next best for her. Okay. So it could be all those factors that is taken into consideration.
Okay. Now, Edward says, hello, Coxes. Should we be on meds for grief? Now, there was another one, before you answer this, there was another one that says, is grief the same as depression? And that came from Cody. And what I have learned is that there are two different beasts. And if I may say, and you can correct me if I'm right or wrong, you do not take medication for grief because it's the way it operates in the body physiologically, it's different from how depression is like finite, and you can give medication for depression, but you can't medicate grief. Is that correct?
Your microphone is muted, Dr. Barbara. Your microphone is muted. Hello.
Sorry. Yes. So grief is definitely different from depression.
Yeah.
Depression is a mental or psychological illness. And depression can also come out of grief.
Yeah.
Because depression is also one of the symptoms that derives from grief.
Yeah.
Okay.
And apparently,
Chronic grief or long-term grieving.
apparently the brain, this all stems, if we're looking at it from a medical standpoint, the brain is where things happen when we deal with grief and loss, because there's a specific portion of the brain, the hippocampus apparently, and that's responsible for formation of what they say of memories, of new memories, right? So the neurons, the nerve cells that we have, they have different types, and they talk about dopamine. Right. And we know dopamine as the things,
make you happy,
the things that make you happy,
but not necessarily so.
What they're saying, right, it's like grief is, it's like you're reaching for a desire to be well. Okay. Why do people reach for the drug? Because they think it's going to make them feel better. So what they're saying is that the release of
dopamine, yes, makes you feel better in that stage.
But the thing with grief is that with the drugs, you reach for it and you can get it, right? And you take it and then you get that hit, right? But with grief, you're reaching to feel better. You have the dopamine released, but you can't find that person again. That person is gone, and therefore you have a different situation than when you're, say, reaching out for a drug, right?
So that is why with grief, it's integrated, yeah, into your life. It's become a part of your life. And also grief is the journey that you go through to get to a place of, would say, healing or acceptance.
Comfort.
For example, we have these episodes, right? When I think this is why we miss the person so much. Sometimes you go into a room and I've heard people say, oh my goodness, like my sister Joan, sometimes she says, Micah is here, or she can feel the presence. It's really strange, but people who are grieving, they actually, I don't know, I guess we would need a psychologist or I don't know, a medical doctor to explain that.
So that, but that experience that Joan talks about, that's a perfect example of what a doctor says. You're never over grieving.
What do you mean?
Because that she gets that feeling that that person is there. That's her son. And every once in a while, she gets a feeling that his presence is there.
Yes,
but it's not.
Exactly. Right? Because remember, that person is not dead with where you're concerned.
In the mind.
That person lives on in the physical. In the physical, the person is not around. In the spiritual, that person lives with you.
Yeah.
That person is as part of you and continues to be a part of you.
And
people will say you need to separate yourself. You cannot separate yourself because that person was always a part of you. Yeah. If you understand what I'm saying. So in the memory of that person, that means you would have to erase all the memories.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now can I get to some more email?
Yes, please.
Right out here. Here's one from Alexis, and Alexis is asking, does Dr. Stewart have a book out? And if so, where can we purchase it? Thank you.
Wow.
Want to answer that?
It's on its way.
It's on its way.
Yes, it's on its way. And when the book is released, I will be back on the show. It's in the process.
Okay. And I know for your thesis, you did work on a couple of books. I don't know if they have been released yet.
Yes.
You did one on
it's printed, so we are making it more people's friendly.
Okay, here's
that all the scientific terminology and all that is not there to confuse people. Okay. Yes.
Okay, here's one from Karen, and Karen says, does Dr. Stewart have a private practice, like a clinical practice?
Right? Yes.
So this is a perfect time to give out your details, your website.
Yes, tell us how we can reach you, how our listeners can get to you.
I should have sent, because I don't know if they can see our brochure. Yes. So, okay. So yes, I do is BNJ Holistic Counseling and Wellness Center.
And that's holistic with a, I know some people spell it with an A, with a W, but this is BNJ holistic with an H.
Yes.
HOLISTIC, holistic.
Could you repeat that? BNJ Holistic Center?
BNJ Holistic Counseling and Wellness Center, Inc.
Holistic Counseling and Wellness Center. And that's...
And it's www.b for Barbara, N for Nancy, J for Janet, HOLISTIC COUNSELLING.com. www.bnjholisticcounseling.com.
Okay, no center.
Okay, no
Great.
center.
Okay.
Okay, that's
Yes.
great. Anything else?
And sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you have a phone number? Or
Yes, that's what I was about to.
Yes, pay for
I
people.
can be reached at 647-785-7959 or 437-881-8165.
Okay, and we'll repeat those at the end of the show.
Yes.
Back to a question for kids. Again, when a child experiences the death of a parent, especially when they're really young, let's say a 5-year-old, I look at my grandchildren and they're so happy and they're so, no offense to the dad, but they're so mom-centered. It's like your mother is your world. The younger you are, we find that, right? And when children lose their parents, the question is there a difference with how children grieve from the way adults will grieve?
Big difference. Big difference. And one, I must say that children on a whole, boys tend to be more close to mom psychologically and girls close to dad. I don't know if you experienced that with your kids growing up. But that's how psychologically we see that. But children are known as the forgotten grievers.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for it, because they do not sit and mourn and cry and sad like adults. They'll be crying one moment and an opportunity arise and they'll be jumping, playing, laughing, and all that kind of thing. Yeah. And as a result of that, because they tend to be misassessed, misdiagnosed, or miscalculated the way they grieve, then they tend to be left, be ignored, that they're not affected.
Yeah. And I think
this has caused trauma in kids that literally shape their adult lives. Mm-hmm. That affect them in adults at the adult stage of their life that people don't understand. If I have time, I would give an illustration of something that I learned if I have time, but if not,
yeah, we quickly run out. We quickly run out of time, and there's another question I want to follow up with that.
Yeah, before she leaves though, one of the worst thing I think. Before we leave the children aspect, one of the worst things that I think adults do, like, let's say you're with your parents, your mom has died. Let's say dad does not take the kids, he does not look after them, or a new person comes in, whether it's a foster home or whether it's a grandparents, whatever. And they expect the child to now replace the parent. And some people, even a stepmother, well, now you can call me mom. And that's not really that doesn't really help a child, does it?
No, and that's the similar thing I wanted to just speak on briefly. I was told by an adult, young adult, about when the mom died, and they were living in Guyana, and the mom died when the youngest was, I think, 7 years old, and they were sent to Barbados to their grandparents, to the grandmother, and the grandmother loved them and cared for them. However, now, this is one stage of abandonment, even though the mom did not physically get up and walk away from them. She died. They are abandoned. That's what's happening in the child's mind, in the child's heart, is abandoned. And now going to somebody new that, even though they may be talking on the phone or everything, it's a different stage, a different environment. So there's so much I would like to say on that, but next time when we do the show next time. But that's a very interesting area that I would like to discuss next time.
And I think I'm going to hold off this question because the answer might be a little
probably again, if we can just briefly touch on it and expand on it at another time.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the cultural background influence, when it comes to grieving, how in different cultures, how different cultural backgrounds might influence the way people. And if you could quickly answer that, because we are really running out of time.
As usual, right? We have less than 5
Just give me a short answer on that.
So culturally, people grieve differently also. For example, let's talk about a Muslim. Even though that's spirituality, but where they're from, or African versus Jamaican. The way that you grieve or mourn or go through is not even the grieving aspect, is the mourning process and the tradition that's carried out. That is different. The grieving is that you're not allowed to go cry and do certain things, but you have to accept and go on as if nothing happened. So, and that person is internalizing everything and going through stages of life that is affecting them, that become traumatized, and also depression.
And even with the burial aspect, I know the Jewish community, as well as the Muslim community, they don't hold bodies long. Quick burial and move on to the next phase.
3 days, within 3 days.
Yeah,
which is part of what we term as the mourning.
I know some African families that can hold that body for 6 months.
1 year.
Up to a year. And it's like.
But the reason for it is because they have family coming in from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
That's one of the main reasons why they do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Folks, as usual, it's a Sunday afternoon. It's 1 hour, but it feels like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? And it really, really goes quickly. And, if you're joining us for the first time, you are listening to the Coxes on the Liquid Green Health Show. This is our regular Sunday afternoon, and we are streaming live on realityradio101.com. Our guest today has been Dr. Barbara Stewart, and we really had an in-depth conversation on grieving because this is her expertise. This is her forte, right? And so with that, Dr. Barbara Stewart, we would like to say thank you. It's been a pleasure, and really would love to have you on our show sometime, another time, not too far from now.
And we also wanted to say thank you to all the people who wrote in those emails, because without them, that it definitely adds to the conversation.
Yes.
As we're able to answer the questions.
And with that, folks, if you'd like to join our email list, please write to liquidgreenhealthshow@gmail.com. And, let us know, of course, where you are listening from. We're going to wrap things up right now. We'd like to thank our producers and everyone that has helped to make this show a success today. And please remember that good health is at the core of human joy and overall well-being. You want to say something?
I think Barbara wanted to say something.
Thank you. I want to say thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And also, for any questions that comes in after, we can always dialogue and send the answer out.
And I just wanted to say very, very quickly, I am still grieving for Canada, who won that, who I thought, oh my God, this is history. They were going to win that soccer game. And they lost it in the last 3 minutes.
Yeah, they blew it. They're like the
That's why
leaves.
I don't follow sports, because I can't handle grief like that.
They're like the leaves. Good health, folks, is the core of human joy and overall well-being. Its influence is profound, extended beyond personal vitality to significantly bolstering prosperity and economic advancement. Thus, investing in your health is akin to investing in a brighter, more prosperous future for ourselves and the communities we inhabit. So until next Sunday, same time, same station, prioritize your well-being, please.
You got that right. This is
Janet and Fred
saying, let's
stay
healthy
healthy on Reality Radio 101.
Thank you for listening to the Liquid Green Health Show with your hosts, Fred and Janet Cox, right here on Reality Radio 101.